I'm not sure exactly the year, but I can recall coming back from a meeting in St. Paul and hearing fire sirens and seeing fire engines around the church. I was petrified. There was smoke that was coming out of the back end of the church, and Father Mertz was running around, and so was, everybody was running around. And there was a fire this time. I have no idea how that fire got started, but clearly it did get started, and it really did gut a lot of the sacristy. But more than that, there was an immense amount of smoke damage and an immense amount of damage that resulted in having to do all kinds of cleaning and all kinds of restoration of the church. That was we were very lucky. The church was not destroyed in that, but it was also a very sad day in that this church that has stood on this corner for so long and has been part of so many people's lives could have been jeopardized because of a fire. That's one thing that stands out strongly in my mind. Another thing that stands out regularly in my mind is the year after year after year wonderful celebrations of the Oktoberfest. Those were the opportunities that drew people, not only the current members of the parish, but drew people who had been in the parish and had gone elsewhere, drew people from the larger community. It certainly was a fundraiser for the life of the parish, but even more than that, it was an effort that built community. People put their shoulders to the wheel. They did a lot of hard work. This was not an easy thing to pull off. But you could see in people's faces as that weekend unfolded, the great satisfaction and the joy and the love that was present for this community and the life of this parish. During those years, though, from 68 to 78, those were upheaval years, not only here in the parish, but throughout the country. I mean, those were the years of the war in Vietnam. Those were the years in which there was a lot of unsettled, if you will, social, political, economic life that was going on. And the parish was not immune from that. I mean, we were part of the world, and so those issues struck very deeply into the lives of members of the parish. And there were some divisions in the parish. Clearly there were divisions around the war in Vietnam. I mean, there were people who were strong supporters of the efforts in Vietnam, and there were people who were strong opponents of that. And there was a lot of debate that went on. I feel glad for the fact that this debate could take place and the strong emotions could be expressed. And yet that did not fracture the life of the parish. It was more important for people to be part of the Inky spirit than all that other stuff. Not that that other stuff wasn't important, but people were not willing to relinquish their commitment to their parish in the light of disagreement with parishioners. And that was wonderful. That was wonderful. Late in the 1960s and early in the 1970s, the beginning, or at least the legislative discussion around the right to life and the abortion questions emerged. In 1970, with the help of some very, very strong members of this congregation, not the least being people like Joe Kenny and Owen Lamb and Don Teefee and Jerry Teefee and a whole variety of people, I offered myself as a candidate for the Minnesota State Legislature in 1970. I didn't win. It was a four-way race. There were 2 seats open. What it did, though, it did allow me to get into the homes of all kinds of people. Those people who worked on my campaign were absolutely relentless in scheduling what we called coffee parties, where I would show up at someone's home and there would be neighbors and friends, perhaps, you know, a dozen or 18 or 20 people, and we'd sit around and we'd have coffee and eat cookies, and we'd spend an hour and a half, sometimes longer, talking about the concerns that were present in people's lives. I don't know if I would ever have had that opportunity to have those kinds of conversations if it hadn't been for the opportunity to seek public office. And so even though I did not even though I was not elected, and even though the fundamental issue that drew me into it was the issue around the right to life, the dividend that paid for itself was that I made all kinds of contacts with people that I would never have ever had the opportunity to do before.
Sure.